I'm supposed to click.
Oh,
Has he done the gallery yet?
yes.
Oh, yeah, do
he
the
did that
gallery view.
before. Remember at the top of your screen, Phil, find where it says gallery view.
Yeah, I got it, and I clicked on it, and oh my goodness. There's
Now you
even
can
more.
see us all.
Mine will only show me
Who's
5
this
at a
person?
time.
Well, if we don't accomplish anything else, this is good already.
I'm really happy.
Oh God.
And there is a Jody coming.
Yes, and Jody lives out of state and is
Ah.
joining us. Yeah,
Hi, Jody.
Not
connecting.
quite connected yet.
I need to get a pen real quick.
Okay, go for it.
I know
let
I
you
had one.
Get started.
Oh. Got it.
Got it?
Got it.
Can you hear us, Jody? Jordan?
Is it Jordan?
Yeah.
I heard you, Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
Good deal. We met on Monday. Where is it that you live, Jordan?
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
Ah,
Nice.
So that's great. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and get started, and people may decide to, be logging on, but we are ready to get going here. So if everybody could just mute themselves for now, that would be awesome, and then we'll open it up in a little bit. There we go. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sorry.
All right, super. So good evening and welcome to everybody on this call. This session of Trinity's Camp Compassion is Speaking Out, Housing Advocacy with Elected Leaders, and I'm Deb Meyer, Director of Servant Ministries at Trinity. This is the first of a short series of 40-minute calls with our Housing for All allyship, with an aim to connect us to one another for mutual encouragement in our advocacy work and provide tips for a specific aspect of our work together. Tonight's call is focused on influencing elected leaders at the local, state, and national level. You'll be hearing from both Jan Silverstein and Pam Hubbard, and we want to hear from you too. So there will be a portion of this call where we will unmute and hear from you all as you're able to share. Like all of you, I have had to adjust my exercise routine through the impact of COVID. I stepped out early yesterday morning to get a walk in before it got too hot or too warm to be enjoyable. I love walking through the historic neighborhood of San Rafael, and I know that many of you are familiar with that, an old part of Denver. And most of the homes were built in the 1800s. The streets are tree-lined, and many of the yards are landscaped with native plants that are really thriving now in our summer weather. But yesterday, my inner advocate for housing justice took my attention. Because you see, I am not only an ally of Housing for All, I worked as a realtor for 3 years, helping people buy and sell homes just prior to coming on staff at Trinity. Real estate is in my blood, and when I came across a house for sale on one of my favorite streets, Emerson, between 20th and 21st Street, I stopped right there and looked up the listing on my phone. I could barely believe what I saw, and I decided to focus on enjoying the rest of my walk before looking any further at the listing. Once home, I pulled it up, and that house on Emerson was built in the 1880s and at a little over 3,000 square feet, listed at almost $500,000 more than what it sold for only 11 years ago. That house listed for $890,000. I would have to go in with 2 other people to buy that house to be in my price range. It went under contract in less than 2 weeks, and the data is not available for the sale price until after it closes. But a realtor knows that if a home is priced correctly, it will go under contract within 2 weeks in our current market. So this scenario creates an inner struggle for me, and it may for you as well. First of all, yes, I support the creation of wealth through investments, including real estate, though there is much work to do for fair housing and for racial justice in real estate. And at the same time, yes, gentrification like this is depleting Denver's housing market of affordable ownership and rental options at alarming rates. In fact, a national news story this week ranked Denver as #2 in the nation for the rate of gentrification on a top 5 list with coastal California cities. Aging and original owners on fixed and average median incomes in gentrifying neighborhoods must often choose between maintaining their homes and paying escalating property taxes, or worse, give up their home and try to find something that is affordable, which often means they end up doubling up or tripling up in a single family residence with other family units. As we work together to advocate the creation of housing for neighbors who are living in shelters or in tents on the streets, and as we work to stabilize low-income neighbors who are at risk of losing their housing due to job loss, illness, or divorce, let's also consider the growing numbers of middle-income neighbors being pushed out of their homes by gentrification. Our efforts to persuade elected leaders to allow temporary sanctioned encampments with sanitation and security have made a difference. Our efforts to persuade state legislators in the House to pass the HEROES bill have made a difference. Our work to develop relationships with elected leaders has made a difference. There is much to do, but progress is being made. Thank you for joining this call and for your commitment to see that all our neighbors are in safe, decent housing, befitting the person made in the very image of our Creator. And now please pull up the chat feature at the bottom of your screen and type in one word that describes how you feel at the beginning of this call.
Oh,
Guilty, excited, just type it in and push enter, and it will show up for everybody. Determined, excited, optimistic, thank you for those of you who have entered in there, and we'll keep working with the settings on the Zoom. And with that, I'm going to turn the call over to Joan. I apologize, I went a little bit over on my opening, so I will take that off the end so everybody can keep on track with their part of the presentation. Jan, Pam, Joan, you don't need to adapt yours. I'll adapt mine at the very end. So Joan has been gracious to host and administrate this call for us tonight, and she has a couple of insights to share. Thank you for all for joining us.
Thank you, Deb. Hi, I'm Joan Maybury, and I'll be your moderator for tonight's meeting. What this means is that I'll be doing the following. I'll be managing your ability to mute and unmute your sound. If you have a comment during one of the sharing sessions, please type the word talk into the chat box. You will be unmuted by me at the appropriate time if you want to contribute. Otherwise, everyone except our speakers will be muted throughout the meeting. At the very end of the meeting, there'll be a time for people to chat with each other. So that would be after the meeting. I will also be the timekeeper and would be giving 1-minute warning signs for our presenters. And I will be recording the meeting and will give Deb Meyer access to the recording to share in any ways that she's determined best. With that said, I will now turn the meeting over to Jan.
Sure, I am unmuted. I am. You can hear me. Wonderful. So hello, everybody. A couple of you I'm meeting for the first time. Very glad to do so. And then I love to see my friends who are here. And Phil, can't believe it. I'm loving it that you're here. And so my goal for this segment is to make sure that we find out what has been happening since our last Zoom meeting, which was late April. And we've been at this allyship for months and months. And over that time, we've been all about trying to influence policy. And we've been supporting this housing for all piece in 3 ways. And think about this as I'm talking about it. The first thing we talked about when you saw the little house that was our logo for doing this, the first thing is learning how to do this work, learning the strategies that we need to do it. The second is monitoring what's going on with issues that we care about, those issues that are at the national level and at the local level. And hopefully you're aware that that's where we've been focusing. But our most important thing we've been doing is trying to engage you in pushing for change. And that's been I believe, the major goal of all of this. So right now, our question tonight is, how's it going for you? Thinking about the mailings we've sent out, the Facebook posts, the actions we've requested, the information you've gathered on your own, I have one question for this segment. What actions have you taken and what results have you gotten? We want you to tell us briefly your stories. And I will start with a simple story from my own experience. So 2 weeks ago, we were asked to contact the mayor's office. Everybody shake your head if you remember being asked to contact the mayor's office. Yeah. So I did. I found myself on the phone. I was with a young man from the Hancock's office, and I was talking about safe outdoor space. And from my side of the phone, it seemed like he was taking careful notes. He was asking questions, and I felt like I was being heard, and I hung up. And it seems that the result on July 1st, just a week ago, was good in this case. So that's the action I took, and this is the result that we're experiencing now. I think probably there were a lot more calls than just mine, but that was my experience. So what about you? What stories about your time on the phone, your time sending emails? Can you give us examples? And all you have to do is go to chat and type in the word talk, and you're on. Let's hear your stories. Who's going to be first?
If you can't find your chat, just raise your hand since there's not as many of us. If you're not sure you can find the chat, just raise your hand. All right, I see Phil. You have a story to tell us, and I'm going to unmute you. Okay, Phil, you're on.
I'm unmuted.
No, I unmuted you,
You're good. I hear you.
but I can mute you again.
Can you see me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Well, my story is much smaller, but I think it's somewhat important. Some of the recent things I've done was, for example, my barber. Did you hear about my barber?
Mhm.
His barber had a DUI. He had to do community service, and my barber who is in that story, in that book, Stories from the Shelter. He's in there because he donated gallons of smell good for the men's showers. This time he came up with the idea that he would let his barber to do his community service by giving a haircut to 48 of our homeless men. I talked to Ellie Benjamin about it. She connected me with Donnie, I think, Ronnie. Yes, that's it. And we have now got them. Yeah. And there was a problem there, a bit of a problem, and I went down and to the shelter, and Ellie gave me a tour of the construction and all of that work and so on. And that was amazing to see. And I must tell you too that early this week, I wrote a letter to the editor of the Denver Post about our subject. And I am here to tell you that they chose not to publish it.
Oh, no.
I'm crushed. I'm crushed. I don't like to brag, but I think since I retired 22 years ago, I probably published more letters in the Post than anybody else in the city, but they didn't. But let me just summarize it for you quickly. May I?
I think you should.
Okay, all right. A person had written a letter, had published a letter that I approved of, and I commended the Post for publishing it because this person had made a count of tents on the sidewalks and found over 500 on sidewalks and another 100 down in the park, you know, by the Capitol. And he said it was time that we had better do something about that. And I was able to link that with what Deb and we've been up to anyway. But in addition, he made the point too that that what's going to happen in terms of the eviction rate when we're back in business again, and all of those businesses go out of business, and how all of those people, employees and business owners, are going to get evicted, and that will take not phone calls to the mayor's office, but massive governmental aid. I think at the federal level, state level, and at the city level. Yeah. So I was saying, let's keep up with our local work to try to do what we can in every way we can, but let's also push for a national drive to help us offset that eviction landslide that I'm afraid might be coming.
Bill, thank you so much. And I'm just thinking that I want to hear from Mary Beth, and then I think there's Pam. Mary Beth, tell us a bit about what you've been up to.
Oh, let me unmute her. Sorry.
Did you get her unmuted?
I'm there. Oh, she's
There you go.
unmuting and I'm unmuting her at the same time. Huh.
We're not hearing you yet.
Okay, just a minute, please. I've got another way to undo you. Huh. Unmute audio.
Okay, Pam, why don't you talk while we're getting Mary Beth undone?
I was just giving, can you hear me?
Mhm.
Yes.
I was just giving Phil a thumbs up.
Very good.
That was so
Yes,
great.
Bill. Thumbs up
Yeah,
to you.
yeah, yeah.
Mary Beth, we want to hear you. It's
I've
just not
unmuted
working.
everybody and she is still staying muted.
Can she unmute herself?
Oh, Mary Beth, you might, there you go. You're unmuted.
You're
All right.
done. Go for it.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Thank
Okay,
you.
great. Well, the one thing, Jan, I did the same thing that you did. I called the mayor's office. I had a nice young woman who took my my words down and made sure that she got them down correctly and that she understood. And I just felt so good about it. And again, it wasn't long that there was Mayor Hancock on TV going, well, we're going to do this, but it's going to be very temporary. And I thought, success.
Yeah, I felt individually responsible. How about you, Mary Beth?
Yeah, yes, if it
Yeah.
hadn't been for me.
Yeah,
Jan, you have 1 minute left.
very good. Okay, so can we sneak in something in 1 minute? Julia or Monica? What do you think? Paula?
So I'm very new to all of this. So I've been signing some petitions, but I haven't really been calling anybody. So I'm really excited
Signing
to hear
petitions,
from you
good.
guys how to do more. So
Excellent.
This is Julia. This is my first evening to attend, so I do not have a report.
Oh, but we can see you now, Julia, so this
Yes.
is all good.
But
And-
I'll get busy.
You get busy and then we're going to meet August 13th, right? August 13th will be story time for you. Got it? I think
Got
it's
it.
about time. Thank you all. It's great to see your faces, and I need to turn this over to my friend Pam. Go ahead, Pam.
Okay, well, I'm going to talk for a few minutes about some of the nuts and bolts of actually doing advocacy. And the topic is the two sides of the coin when contacting elected officials. One side of the coin is telling your story. The other side is increasing the numbers. And both of these advocacy tools are essential in influencing elected officials, which of course affects policy. So I'll start by giving you the 1 minute version of my story, which is why I'm a part of Housing for All Allyship. When we moved to Denver in 2014, we chose to live on Capitol Hill, partly because of the diversity of people who live there. But when I saw so many people living on the streets, and that was in 2014, I was distressed and wanted to do something about it. Fortunately, I soon found allies at St. Francis Center, where I became a volunteer and I assisted homeless guests in filling out housing applications. However, before long, I was shocked when I discovered that housing waiting lists were at least 1 year long. I found myself praying for a way to impact housing policy. We had to get more housing. How would I become an advocate? Well, in time, I met some others at Trinity who had the same concerns, Deb and Jan, to be exact, and Housing for All Allyship is the result. So you all have stories too. And what does your particular story look like? Well, it will answer one or both of these questions. How am I affected, or why do I care about homelessness and housing instability? And then why tell your story when you have an opportunity in talking to elected officials? Well, it gives a real life example for your elected official to use in helping to clarify or strengthen an argument for a particular policy. And it also adds emotion to facts and statistics, which makes the situation personal instead of it just being another issue. So when might you use your story? This is the fun part. You get to use your story when you have a personal appointment with your council member or his or her aide. It might be in a phone call. We've already had some testimonies of phone calls that were meaningful. It might be at the public comment time before city council meetings. And it might be online in the comment email on a legislator's webpage, and you'll probably find other times too. But as important as telling your story is, sometimes increasing the numbers is more important. So why should you use numbers only sometimes when you contact an elected official? Well, think of it as a vote between the vote. When you, in a formal election, you vote and you elect a person into an office. But when you add your name to increase the numbers in support of a specific issue, it's like you're voting. You're voting for that action. And you're actually helping your elected official to set legislative priorities. Okay, so how do you actually increase numbers? Well, you add your name to lists of people who are already trying to change policy, like in the old days when we signed petitions, right? On paper. So you might start, if you haven't already, with exploring the links recommended in Deb's Housing for All Allyship emails, and also look at the Allyship Facebook page for ideas and websites. And when you explore those websites, always look for the Take Action button. It'll be there somewhere. And do whatever it says. And if you want to increase the numbers even more, you can encourage your friends, your contacts to take action by using the like, follow, or share options on social media. And then when do you use numbers only instead of your story? Well, whenever a bill, proposal, or policy needs public support or public opposition, needs lots of names. So as we continue to do these meetings and work together in this little group and we grow in our advocacy skills, we'll learn how best to use both sides of the coin, our stories as well as increasing the numbers. So when you received this invitation to this call tonight, there was a question in there from Deb. And that question was, what do you enjoy about contacting public officials? And what makes you nervous about contacting public officials? So now it's going to be your turn to talk a little bit back. We'll divide that into two pieces. And I'm not watching my time, Joan, but are we okay?
You have 3.5 minutes.
Yep.
Okay, great. So do the same thing. If you want to talk, just type the talk or raise your hand and Joan will unmute you. So let's first just take one or two people about what do you enjoy about contacting your public officials. Who wants to go first? Maybe we've already answered this one. What do you think? Does anyone have something to add to that?
So just really quickly, one of the things that's been really enjoyable for me since
Deb,
yeah,
Your audio.
you've got that funny thing that you say sometimes happens.
now is it bad?
It's still doing it.
I'm gonna
Yep.
go out and come back in.
Go out and come back in. Yep.
Okay.
Paula,
Well-
is contacting your official a pleasant thing for you? What do you like about it? There you are, Paula, over here. Can we unmute Paula?
Am I unmuted? Can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay. I don't like contacting public officials. I just find it, haven't done much of it. I did more of it during the working for the Equal Rights Amendment for women.
Yeah.
I've made a financial contribution to the network. That would be the only thing I've done regarding the homeless.
That's a good thing.
At this time.
Yeah.
Excuse me, my throat. I'm very interested in the aspect of mental health, the lack of facilities among the homeless, and I think it's, for all people suffering from mental health. And so that's really my major interest, and I'm probably taking too much time. But
I just took a note, so we won't lose that. And
Okay.
let's go on to Paula.
Excuse me, Pam.
Yeah.
Jody, I know your name is not Jody, but that's what
Jordan.
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 Says you're from out of town, you're a public official, and you would like to say something.
Good, go ahead.
Yes, I live in Massachusetts, a small city near the Rhode Island border, about 56,000 population. I've been involved with a lot of these projects. Right now, I'm on my school board, so I'm not, but I have in the past been on the city council and the planning board. And I was also involved in starting our first homeless shelter in our city. We have development laws here that I'm not sure what you have by comparison in Colorado, but some of the laws we have that offer bonuses or relief from certain regulations if affordable housing is included in projects, and that somewhat reduces the reliance on public housing and we have terrible lists to get into public housing, but if you're working poor as opposed to real poverty, we have a lot of options available here. Also professionally, I'm a lawyer and a HUD certified housing counselor, and I work part-time for a housing counseling agency, and I'm involved with getting purchase money mortgages and down payment relief for first-time home buyers, and also working on loan modifications for people running into trouble. But if you have regulations that do make provisions for bonuses and relief for affordable housing, it's not just the officials you need to contact. You need to be in touch with developers, because a responsible developer will be of more help to you than any sleazy politician any day.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, and I think it's time for us to move on to you, Deb.
And I'm looking for Deb.
She's down.
Oh, let me unmute you. Okay,
She may not have gotten back in.
she's there. Do your gallery.
I'm here. Do you see me?
Oh, she's
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
So are you saying it's time to
For
shift to close? Okay, all right, good. Well, thank you so much for those comments that you all have shared. And I know that this is moving quickly. It was our intent to make this be a 40-minute session so that it's a quick in and pick up some tips, and then we'll stay connected. But we will be looking for your feedback on this as we go along.
Excuse me, Deb.
So
You still have your acting out?
yes,
Okay.
So that's what I'm going to do that now. So this is the section on what we're going to do next. And so I wanted to just follow up with what Pam had shared about how we do connect with our elected leaders, and just encourage you that if you don't yet know who your city council representative is, that's available on the website. And so if you live in Denver, you go to the city and county of Denver. If you live in Aurora, you go there. If you live in Westminster, you go there. Wherever it is that you live, be sure you go to that site and find the map and how it's all, the districts are laid out and who your representatives are. Several people who are involved with us who go to Trinity and are concerned about homelessness and housing downtown don't live in Denver. And so, and I know that Mary Beth has done this successfully. If you don't live in Denver, but you want to help in our work in Denver, then you reach out to Chris Hines on the Denver City and County website. He is the city council person for Trinity, and we are his friend, and we stay in communication with him, and he will love to hear from you that you're an involved person at Trinity United Methodist Church, and he will take your what you have to say to city council. The other person for all of us to contact, whether we live in Denver or outside of Denver, is city council person at large, Robin Knich. There was a second one, but Robin is our special friend. And as you know, Robin came and spoke to us like 3 days before the shutdown of COVID. And she is very integral in the conversations on housing and homelessness in Denver. So that's who you can contact locally. And then whenever we send out the connections for advocacy work in the state and nationally, the links that we provide are always the ones that they just make it so easy for us. It's like you do a click, you put in your zip code, and it just guides you to the right person. And so when we send out those invitations to advocate, we don't say who to contact because we know that we live across the region and we want everybody to be involved in those efforts. So if you have a problem figuring out who your representatives are, feel free to reach out to Jan or to Pam or to me, and we are really happy to help you get a handle on that. And then we seek to build a relationship with them. Like Pam was talking about, whenever we can share our housing story with that person. And then I always suggest too, before you interact with an elected leader, do some research on them. There's a lot of information in their bio on the website that you can find out about what they've done, where they came from, what their personal story is. And the more we can affirm them for what they're bringing into the office, the better. I mean, because what we want to do is we want to forge a relationship with them to move forward. Elected leaders always have a conscience and values, but they always need their electeds to support, to say what it is that we want them to do, and then they are able to live out those values that they have for housing. So keep watching emails, and those of you who this is your first time on this call, you have been added to the email list. So whenever when we send out action items, you will get that. And both Jean and Pam have mentioned what that looks like. It's usually we're doing this locally, do this step locally, and we're doing this nationally, do this step for national. And so what we're doing right now is we are following up with City Council to thank them for approving the safe outdoor space. So whoever your City Council person is, just send them an email and say, thank you so much for your work to get safe outdoor space. It's not perfect, it's not long-term, but we feel like it's an important option for where we are now with the number of people who are living on the streets. And that in itself helps forge that relationship because you're connecting with them and you're thanking them. A second piece of that is that Colorado Village Collaborative, the people who do tiny homes, I'm on their board. And so we are the first approved group to do a safe outdoor space. And the mayor has approved our plan to do the first, and it will be for 50 people. And he has also opened it up for other groups to do additional what do you call it? Sanctioned campsites, sanctioned encampments. I'm looking at the clock, so I'm getting a little tongue-tied. And so if you know of a place in your district, if you live in Denver and you know of a church parking lot or an open lot of a business that you could see 50 tents in there for a sanctioned encampment, send that to your city council person because the mayor has asked city council members to provide suggestions. And let's just keep this going. Let's just keep this rolling and see what we can do. But even if you don't have a suggestion, thank you, Joan. I see that. 1 minute. If you don't have a suggestion, still thank them for getting behind safe outdoor space and getting that through. And then just watch the emails. We have a lobby day coming up July the 21st. We'll send you an email to ask you to be involved in that. And that is to connect with Senate. The Senate returns from recess on July the 20th. And we want to send a clear message that our lowest income renters cannot wait. And we're asking them to approve the housing part of the HEROES Act in our lobby day. And then it was mentioned earlier, calendar August the 13th from 7 to 7:40 for our next call of this group. And watch your email for that call link. If you haven't seen it yet, go to the Housing for All Allyship Facebook page because we post articles to keep you abreast of what's happening there as well as events. And I think that's it. Gosh, it's 7:40. Can you believe that? We did it. We thank you so very much for participating on this call. I hope that it's been helpful. It's good to see all of your faces and to hear what it is that you're doing. And I'm so glad that we can do it together. This is hard work and it's long-term work. And so we need to be in community together so that we can support each other. And I know that you'll be okay if I just close us in a very short prayer, even though it's already 7:40. And then we'll say goodbye. Jesus, our brother, you revealed God through your wise words and your loving deeds. And we encounter you still today in the faces of those whom society has pushed to the margins. Guide us through the love you revealed to establish the justice you proclaimed, that all peoples might dwell in harmony and peace, united by that one love that binds us to each other and to you. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you all for joining us. Have a good evening.
Thank you for
Bye.
including me.
Thank you. Yeah, good to see you all.